Welcome to the Krista Redpath Show, where sports take center stage and stories come to life. I'm your host, Krista, veteran analyst and passionate storyteller, bringing you weekly in-depth conversations and sharp analysis across the world of sports. The Krista Redpath Show, breaking down the game, elevating the story, and championing the female voice. To listen to the complete recording of the show, visit KristaRedpathMedia.com or download the Krista Redpath Show from your favorite podcast format. Today's show is proudly brought to you by the Good Food Store. Looking for great value without giving up quality? At the Good Food Store, look for the tree. The Good Choices family of products is my go-to for everyday essentials at budget-friendly prices. From locally raised ground beef and cage-free eggs to organic dairy, pantry staples, and even supplements and body care, you'll find the Good Choices tree sign on items all across the store. When I'm shopping for everyday essentials, this is where I start. Just look for the tree. Premium quality, everyday value, no compromises. Stack up the savings with Good Choices at the Good Food Store, where there's always something good here. Today on the Krista Redpath Show, we welcome one of the most influential figures in the history of women's college basketball, former Montana Lady Griz head coach Robin Selvig. Over 38 seasons leading the Lady Griz, Coach Selvig built one of the most premier programs in the country, compiling an extraordinary 865 career wins, 36 winning seasons, 30 20-win seasons, 24 conference championships, and 21 NCAA Tournament appearances. He was named Conference Coach of the Year 21 times, earned 9 District Coach of the Year honors, and was inducted into the Big Sky Conference Hall of Fame in 2019. His impact reached far beyond wins, creating educational opportunities for generations of student athletes, me included, across the state of Montana, including Native American players throughout the state, an influence that led to his induction into the Montana Indian Athletic Hall of Fame. His career and legacy have been captured in award-winning documentaries produced and directed by Megan Harrington, including Playing Like a Girl, The House That Rob Built, and Native Ball, Legacy of a Trailblazer. But for many of us, myself included, he's more than a Hall of Fame coach. He's a mentor, a teacher, and a lifelong friend. Rob, it's so good to have you with me today. Welcome to my show.
Well, thank you. It is good to be with you.
Rob, after 38 years of leading the Lady Griz, and now you've been retired for a few years, how is retirement treating you?
Well, it's good. I obviously don't wake up stressed out every morning, which is a good thing. And I've got 3 granddaughters to chase around, and so I think life's good.
Do you miss the day-to-day of coaching?
Yeah, I miss the day-to-day. I miss the, being around young kids. That's certainly something that was good. I miss the everyday teaching and basically what's involved in being with a sports family, which is what Lady Griz are, and it keeps you young a little bit, so I'm probably getting old fast now.
Are you enjoying, from a different seat? I mean, I'm down on Media Row either calling a game or taking notes, but I always see you up in the second level and you're watching games. Are you enjoying watching it from a different perspective?
Yeah, well, it's just I try not to get emotionally involved because I did that plenty for years, so I do enjoy it. I love watching the Lady Griz, and I guess the word is it's different. Didn't know what it'd be like when I first retired to go to games and not be coaching all the time, but it's been good. I have not regretted it.
Rob, one of the great parts of retirement is getting moments like this where we can take a step back and celebrate teams that help build your program. And this past year, the 1987-1988 Lady Griz team was inducted into the Grizzly Athletics Hall of Fame. I just want to take a moment to recognize how special that group was. This 1987-88 team finished 28-2 overall and 15-1 in Big Sky play, still the winningest season in program history. That team opened the year winning its first 26 games, recorded signature wins over Oregon, Washington State, Creighton, Wyoming, Gonzaga, and Utah, and helped spark the rise of the Lady Griz program across the state. Their season ended in an unforgettable double overtime NCAA tournament battle against Stanford right here in Missoula, a Tara Vanderveer coached team that would go on to win a national championship just 2 years later. So Rob, I want to go through each one of the players from this very special team because they all deserve recognition. So let's start with your freshmen. Colleen McNally from Ovando, Montana. Terry Tracy from Great Falls, Montana. Shelly Sniffen, a redshirt freshman from Lander, Wyoming. And Marty Kinsler, a redshirt freshman from Fairview, Montana. So those were your 4 freshmen. And then your sophomores, Chris Hassel from Florence, Montana. Vicki Austin, who was from Illinois in the Long Beach State transfer. And Linda Mendel from Malta, Montana. That became just such a familiar name as we had many more of the Malta connection. And then your juniors, Jean McNulty, who ended up redshirting that year or taking that year for an injury, and Lisa McLeod from Great Falls, Montana, another Great Falls girl on your squad. And then for your seniors, which was a really special group, Marty Leibenguth, Karen Ridgway, and Chris Modi and Don Siliker. So Rob, when you hear those names, like what immediately comes back to you about that group?
Well, what came back to me was when we got together back at that. It was just we got to share a lot of fun memories, and they were all great kids, and obviously we had a really good year in basketball. But it was just fun to get together and laugh and tell stories, and they could tell lies about me, and they're just really good people, and obviously had a heck of a basketball year, and they played well together, and it was just so much fun to see them.
So what would like surprise people about this group? Were they like really competitive? I mean, I feel like we all were so competitive, but did they practice hard? What was unique about, winning 26 games in a row is pretty special.
Yeah, no, I don't know if it was unique. I had so many good teams and so many talented players. We had great leadership that year out of that senior class. They really feared nothing. We had, as you mentioned, some of the teams we played. We had a difficult schedule. Played lots of big programs in the non-conference, and we were able to win those. So they were a team that just, whatever adversity came up, you mentioned we had lost some kids because we had them redshirted the injury, and we lost Cheryl Brendel 2 weeks before the end of the year. I think she blew her knee for the second time. So they overcame whatever. I think they loved basketball. They loved playing basketball, and as is usually the case with some talented seniors who are good leaders, they never wanted it to end.
Well, you were part of the Mountain West back then, and Marty Leibenguth was Mountain West tournament MVP. She scored 499 points that season and had 284 rebounds as a first-team All-Mountain West pick. I played against Marty even when I was playing. She was still playing pickup games with us. But talk about her leadership on this team.
Yeah, Marty just developed into a great player, and she was a leader by example. She played every minute for all she was worth. There wasn't a vocal thing. She reminds me of when I mentioned that they didn't want their season to end. It was, I couldn't look her in the eye down the stretch of the last games because it was like, we don't ever want this to end. And you mentioned how good she was even around the time you're playing. I think Marty still could do well. She's a good player for a long time after her basketball career.
So Rob, by the time players like me came into the program, I felt like there was already an expectation that was attached to being a Lady Griz. Like how much of that was set from these younger teams, like these teams that you first coached? You were in your 10th year, and we do need to mention that Annette Rocheleau was your assistant coach at the time, but you were in your 10th year. Like, do you feel as if like those standards were set by a team like the 87, 88 team?
Well, I think it grew before then even. I mean, I don't know. I don't remember records of every year and all those things, but we had some success in the second or third year. We went to the NCAAs. We hosted a game in the NCAAs at a later time that the fans were rolling in. So I think the early players I had taught. They just understood the younger players coming in. There was a standard that they competed at, and it was very natural for the young kids to learn from that. And so once it got going, it bred itself each year it just kept falling on that, expectations are high. And so what if we're playing a Pac-12 team and those kind of things? And our crowd and our fan support grew to where it was, we were one of the programs that started to draw a long time ago. And I think the pride that the gals got from that and the lift we got out of that support all contributed to it.
Okay, Rob, so we're going to stop the history lesson for a second. Just start talking about like the Big Sky Conference this year. You've had a chance to look around the conference. Has there been any teams that have really stood out to you? I know Idaho's in the driver's seat right now. They're in first place, and Arthur Moreira, the first Brazilian head coach, he's in his second season as the head coach, and he's done such a fantastic job with his team. Are there any teams that really stood out to you that you were able to watch this year?
Well, I've caught most all of them. Of course, I've seen, I think, every Lady Griz game, either in person or on the road. I've caught a couple games. I did watch Idaho play Cal Berkeley in the non-conference and was very impressed by them. I think it's a typical Big Sky League. There's some teams at Montana State and Idaho that are having great years and have established themselves as this is who you got to knock off if you want to go farther. But you have the typical Idaho State team who's just dangerous as heck because Seton, they're going to play hard on defense, and they can win games with their defense. And not that they can't score the ball too, but they always – and he's got a pretty good club this year. I've seen him play a couple times, and I have a tendency to give a little edge to teams that are really good defensively. I know and Montana State's good defensively. Idaho's good defensively in different ways. They're also good offensively because of what their defense creates. So every team's different. It's fun to watch and not have to worry about playing anybody.
Yeah.
and preparing for them. And I think the league, as often, there's teams towards the bottom, but people always say, "Well, but they could dump you." And they really could dump you. I mean, there's nobody that's over,
right?
And there's so. Over the years, I've learned there's no score that would surprise me. Somebody can upset somebody, and that's always the excitement of a tournament.
Right.
And I always felt it's too bad because the team that goes over the course of the whole year and wins it, you really don't get much for it. You got to turn on and do it again, and that's hard to do. And got to give credit to the teams that do that.
Well, I know, and the way the tournament is set up, you get the top 6 teams get the first round bye, but I mean, it is once you make it to the tournament, it's like an entire third season, right? As you try to win through on a neutral site, so it is pretty challenging.
Yeah, and it's what a tournament does. Is your season's never over because you always got another game. And what if we get hot in the tournament? And on the con side out of it is, what if you have the best team? Well, but somebody sprains their ankle on Wednesday night. So that does is creates excitement, and there's not many sure things involved. And of course, we're a conference that's only going to get one team in. Right. We're not getting two, although we did one year get to us and Boise. Actually, Boise made the tournament in that large that year. It's only happened once.
Only one time. Right.
It was deserving. Both of us were ranked in the top 25 at different times, I think, that year. But you can't. That's probably not ever going to happen again. And so you got to win that tournament. You always have the NIT, but that's what makes the thrill of going to the NCAA and the experience of going to the NCAA. I'm so happy and proud that so many Lady Griz got to play in a national tournament because it's an exciting event.
It really is. I mean, I was fortunate to go to 4, so I've got my trophies right behind me, but to go to 4 NCAA tournaments is very special. And you mentioned Coach Sobolewski, and I want to give a shout out to Idaho State because I do feel like they do perform well in a neutral site tournament, and I always feel like they lead with defense. And I've been so impressed with Casey Spink and Tasia Jordan, a couple players that, Coach Sobolewski is just putting together a stretch here where he's playing great basketball.
Yeah, well, Spank just, I've liked her over 4 years because she just plays so hard. She really creates and does everything. And every team has some players that I like, and Trish has done just a great job at MSU. They've become, I mean, that defense of theirs, she's had to win in different ways over the years. This year, I think their team's a little different than others. They were a little bit similar last year, but if you don't handle their pressure, that's pretty much it. If you do, then you have a good opportunity. But everybody does it kind of their own way, and that's what makes sports interesting. So.
Coach Binford has not one senior on this roster. And so this was looked at as more of a rebuild year, but she's really set the standard down there. And Taylor Chiric has been phenomenal for the Cats. And I mean, she just never takes a play off, Rob.
You got to love people that play every second, every minute, every possession, every loose ball. That's how you hope everybody plays on your team. But she does do that. And then you put together that she's big, strong, fast, and quick. Pretty good player.
So the transfer portal has really impacted the mid-major level, and we can use Coach Binford's team as an example. I mean, she builds up a player like Mara Dykstra, who leaves to go to Michigan State, and, she loses Alexi Deeden to Colorado State. I mean, it's really hard if you put two doors in front of these kids, door one and door two, and they're making some money to go somewhere. How do you feel like that's impacted the mid-major level, like the Big Sky Conference?
Well, it has a great impact. I mean, it's the way it is now. Things are different. It's not how I think it should be done. It's not what I think is maybe in terms of having team experience and all those things were done, but it is the way it is. So if I was still coaching, I'd have to adapt to that. That's just a fact. And, in a way that my timing of retiring was good, because I don't know that after 40 years I'd want to change how you look and do it to things. I can't blame the players, the kids. I mean, if you can make a significant amount of money, it's hard not to do that. And then in the bigger programs, like Jordy's coach, my niece's assistant at University of Utah, I mean, we're talking big money gets thrown at you if you're good. And so, that's a difficult thing. The only thing that's fair about it is everybody's in the same boat. So it would have been a challenge to adapt to that. And I'm not. Maybe I wouldn't have had the whole mess of Lady Griz that still live around and all show up and get together, and we're all real close. And maybe you don't have those stories if people aren't together for 4 or 5 years.
Well, and that's so true. And then I look at like a Montana State where they had 30 wins last year. I mean, that's impressive. And trying to make another run to go to the NCAA tournament. And they had, what's a quad 1 win. They beat Colorado in Boulder. They also beat UNLV at home, which is a quad 2 win. You start to see that committee taking notice of something like that for a Montana State. So if they were to win out, maybe they get a better seeding than, a 12, 13 on up, and that could really put them in the driver's seat. I know my sophomore year, we were a number 9 seed against Texas Tech. And I know that's because of going, undefeated in conference and having so many consecutive years of being in the NCAA tournament, but you really get that higher seed and you're all of a sudden in a really competitive game.
Yeah, and I think it's more difficult to get a higher seed now than it was even. You got to love when anybody in the Big Sky beats an opponent out of one of those big leagues. It's all good. It's good for the conference. And, we'll see. I don't know this year, but Idaho's got a good record. MSU has a good record. But as you mentioned, they've got a couple good wins. But then once you get to conference, all those wins, if you lose any, they often don't get the credit it deserves.
Right. And Montana State's had they've had a great conference run. They did have the pretty large loss against Idaho State by 19, which could also just show how dangerous Coach Sobolewski's team can be. But then also an overtime loss to Idaho. So it'll be interesting to see how the tournament ends up here. But I'm calling my 12th tournament, so it's pretty exciting. And I know that everyone will be anxiously awaiting Boise here in just a couple short weeks.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be fun. There's another dangerous team, I think, out there. I hate to single out teams, but Eastern Washington, they had the Cats on the ropes twice, and just look at that's the one school that almost all their games have been close, and they've ended up on the wrong side of quite a few of them. But that's why when you go into a tournament, it's like, you can't really count them out because their record isn't that good, but they came within a whisper of beating everybody, so it makes Boise exciting.
I'm so impressed with Coach Gleason, and I'm glad we're bringing up Eastern Washington because I think Courtney Grossman is one of the best players in the league from Billings West, and I know you would just love the way she rebounds, Rob. I mean, she's so impressive. But I look at also Elin Bowers, their freshman guard from Wyoming. And so Coach Gleason's got a squad. I completely agree that they could be a disruptor in the tournament.
Yeah, well, I don't know how you can get that many rebounds. I mean, you got to go after everything, and your hands got to be good. And it just doesn't seem like you should even have that many opportunities. So hats off to her. And there's everyone, and I have seen every team play at least on tape this year. And there's some very good players at the schools that are towards the bottom. And some very good players. And Northern Colorado's in that. Should mention them in that top group. They've emerged, and that's another team that they're real good when their pressure works because it gets their offense going. And so some different styles around the league, which is what makes it fun. And the Lady Griz just haven't quite been able to put anything consistently together. It could happen. It's just finding the right vibe at the right time, and that's what they did last year. Things can happen.
Yeah, they had a nice 4-game winning streak right there after that, taking that loss down in Bozeman. And I agree. I think it's just been 4 quarters of basketball, right? And they just haven't been able to put it together. They definitely have moments. I mean, they were down 20-2 against Idaho in the first quarter, and they came in a 2.5-minute stretch. Rob, they hit 4 threes and hit a couple free throws, and all of a sudden, here they're right back in the game.
They've had some slow starts recently, and I was going to tell Nate, you don't need to spot the other team 15-20. You know?
Yes.
That makes it a little tougher, but they've bounced back from that and they got back in games, and so they can be really good at times.
And Kennedy Gillette, Ray Ehrman, Drea Wacker, they've all been, Jocelyn Lamb, they've all had moments where they've just really stroked it and gotten hot. And of course, I think Avery Waddington, just a premier player in the league, and she's so athletic and agile at 6'3", and played so great last year in the tournament that, when the lights are bright in Boise, the Lady Griz could make a run.
Oh, for sure. And we're more familiar with those kids, and Lady Griz have some good players, but then you go look at all these things. Oh, wait, they all have some pretty good players. Yeah. And that's just the nature of it. Portland has become a dangerous team. They had a hard time getting any wins last year, I think, and year before, but they've picked up a couple, and they aren't getting beat by a whole bunch of points like they were. I
think Kylie Brown, to me, is just a great player, but Carly Barres, I mean, she's going to do good things for Portland State. And I think that's hard anytime you take over a program. And we have a couple new first-year head coaches. Laura Dinkins down at NAU. She was a former player and part of that 2007 championship team for NAU. She was Defensive Player of the Year.
I watched them. That was earlier in the year. Montana was down there, and Arizona looked really good. So they've been inconsistent with you'd maybe expect, since you've got 10 transfers and all those things. And Sac State, I think, is a real good team too.
Right. I know, Erin Koloff. And I think here's one player that has come back in. She's had injuries, but Fatu Jete she started playing for Lori Payne. She transferred over to Sac State, but she's just a really athletic, strong body under the hoop. And I feel like that, strong guard play with Bente Veersteeg and Natalie Picton, and then you add in a Fatu Jete, and I do think Sac State could make a run as well if they're all healthy.
Is it Veersteeg? She's a great leader. I've always been impressed by her. She just sees the complete game, and she runs the team like a point guard should, and she's an impressive player.
Yeah, she was preseason MVP, and so I definitely think that she's had a good year. Now, all conference selections are going to come out. We're going to name an MVP, and I just want to get your opinion. I feel like when those come out before tournament play, there's so much pressure on those kids. And sometimes that's not a great time to announce MVP heading into the tournament.
Yeah, you have all those things. It's a good point. But as Judd, my old college coach, used to say, basketball is a game of pressure. Those that handle it. So you get pressure, all kinds of pressure in different ways when you're an athlete, when you're a basketball player. That's just one of the things. If you're good enough to get MVP during the year, well, go show them you're good enough to be MVP in the tournament.
Rob, before we let you go, I just want to thank you personally for not only your leadership for the Lady Griz program and what you've done for the state, but also for your loyalty and mentorship and to so many of us as former players. And you always, when I ask you to do an interview, you're like, Krista, I'll do it. I am so incredibly grateful for the role that you've played in my life and career. So I just wanted to give you a thanks. And I just really appreciate and love talking Big Sky hoops with you.
Your show's good. I've been listening to it, and you're doing a great job. And all those Lady Griz we were mentioning, that's I'm the one that owes the gratitude. So thank you.
It's a special team. So thank you for giving us some perspective into that amazing team. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you, Krista.
Welcome to Around the Big Sky in Women's Hoops. Joining me today, Carla Taylor. She's been on the floor, on the sidelines, and now behind the mic. I'm so honored to be joined by Hall of Fame coach Carla C.T. Taylor. The longtime Weber State leader brings sharp insight, experience, and a true passion for the game as we break down the latest across the Big Sky Conference, brought to you by the Big Sky Conference. Welcome, NCT.
Thanks, Krista. I'm going to try to be this time not so excited and talk so fast. I'm going to be a little calmer, but there's so much to talk about in such a small amount of time. I just get excited and start rambling all over the place.
I love your excitement. So I think we both share that because we are now down to the final stretch. There's only 1 week left of conference play. So often teams have 3 games left because they have the Thursday, Saturday, and then Monday. And really it is coming down to this last week to see who is going to win the regular season. And
Right.
I don't think we've necessarily had that close of a race. Just looking at these teams and how close they are, there is definitely a top tier of teams in the Big Sky right now. Idaho is 23-5, 14-1. Montana State is just right there. They're 20-6, but 13-2. So there's only 1 game that separates them from a regular season championship. And then you've got UNC that has a nice 3-game winning streak sitting at 11-4, and Idaho State at 11-5. And so right there, CT, let's just stop. What do you think of those top 4 teams?
Well, obviously, the game last week, Montana State, Idaho State, was just a grinder, back and forth and back and forth, and both teams really turning to their strengths. Montana State forcing 23 turnovers, but ISU out-rebounding Montana State 48-39. And then you have Northern Colorado at 11-4 and 20-8. This is the first 20-win season since 2018. So, congratulations to Northern Colorado on what they continue to do. They have a tough last 3 game, one at home with Eastern Washington, then at Idaho, at University of Montana. So, and then Idaho State, they just hang in there. They do what they do, and they do it well. In the Montana State, Idaho State game, Tasia Jordan only played 8 minutes, and I'm not sure if she got hurt or what happened or if she's in the doghouse. But any one of those 4 teams have had to put money on it. I would probably put money on Montana State, Idaho in the championship game. And don't ask me to pick because I have no idea.
Well, let me tell you, this is what I think. When you get to Boise, it is a battle. It starts over. So we talk about how this is the 3rd season, right? But I think the teams that play the hardest defense seem to be teams that hang in there because you're going to you got to, find a way to weather those offensive.
Right.
And so we've seen teams get hot. We have. But I do fall back on those defensive squads and who can come in with a strategy. And it's just, Montana State's relentless.
But the difference,
a lot about that.
Right, but the difference between the 2 teams, Montana State, yes, they depend on their defense and they've stuck with their style of play. They're young. Idaho gives you both defense and they have a lot of scoring weapons and they have upperclassmen. So what is going to win out? Who knows? But the other thing that I think that the Big Sky has done, which is smart, you protect that 1 and 2 seed. They play the second night and they play against the winner of 9-10, 8-7. And so their first game, they sit while those other 2 teams play. And it gets a little scary at first because those teams have been sitting and the other one played a game before, the day before. But then now you get those other teams that are pretty close, the 3 through 6, that play against each other, beat each other up. And then if the 1-2 win, they get the winner of those 2 games. So it's a long tournament, but you also protect, and everybody gets to go, which I agree. I love that. But you also protect your number 1 and number 2 seed.
And I think on that second round, which is the Sunday game, after we have the winner of the 9-10 and the 7-8 who faces the 1-2, they also get a day of rest.
Right.
And so that's a really big deal.
Absolutely.
Having, making a tournament run where you're relying on, just your core team at this point. And depth comes into play. Right. So I want to ask you, though, from a coaching standpoint, and you said, hey, our clear leaders right now, Idaho and Montana State, they're neck and neck.
Yeah.
Coach Binford is in her 21st year, Coach Sobolewski in his 18th year. And so they're veteran coaches. They've been there. But CT, how hard is it to really win a Big Sky Conference championship?
We were talking about this. It is so hard. Every coach every year goes into the season trying to prepare a team to be a conference champion. And I was telling you before we started the broadcast, I went to Utah for a year. We didn't win a championship. I thought for sure 2 years of high school, another year at Utah, we didn't win a championship. And then when I got the head coaching job at Weber State, it took me 13 years to finally cut down the nets and get a championship ring. I mean, it is so hard. And as you get into that long stretch, you just wonder if you ever are going to win. It's difficult. It's not, and anymore, it's not like the Robin Selvig years where he just dominated the Big Sky. And then it got different, right? Other teams started to win. Eastern Washington, Montana State, Weber State, Idaho State. All these different teams now finally start to win. But it's difficult to win championships. There's no question.
So Arthur Morera talked this year about how he took his foot off the gas last January and that he felt like they were not playing their best basketball heading into March. They were a number 3 seed and they ended up losing to Montana, which was a surging Montana team that ended up a basket away from going to the NCAA tournament. But Coach Morera has been really deliberate about making sure that they have competitive practices and they have to keep, just putting their foot on the gas. They're on a 12-game winning streak. Okay, so CT, do you feel like this is a team that, they're more afraid to lose than they are excited to win? Like, do you get to that point, or
I don't think so. I mean, Idaho or Montana State, even though they lost at Idaho, and that's been their only loss before the Idaho State loss, I think these coaches, and take my hat off to them. I'm glad I'm not doing it. But I will say, I think they understand their teams and what their teams need going into this last week. And whether it's rest, whether it's we're going to be competitive, we're going to continue and prepare next week for the Big Sky tournament. I think they understand, each one of them understands their team. I guarantee you, Coach Matteo knows what it's going to take. I guarantee you, Coach Sobolewski knows what it's going to take. And they're preparing them, even though they still have 2 or 3 more games in the regular season.
So let's talk about Northern Colorado. I feel like we have really, spent a lot of time talking about the strengths of Montana State and Idaho. And Idaho State has been a dark horse, and they've been talked about as well. But UNC, they had a pretty sizable win against Northern Arizona, almost a 30-point win. And they are right now on a 3-game winning streak. And you look back to, you brought up such a great point of the last real successful year was 2018. And that was a phenomenal team coached by Cammie Etheridge, who's now at Washington State. They were a number 10 NCAA, they were number 10 seed in the NCAA tournament. But UNC has had a bit of a drought in terms of getting over that hump to get back to the championship.
Right. Well, I think when a coach like Cammie Etheridge leaves, you bring in a new coach and you may go from 1 or 2, and then they have to rebuild that program. And Coach Matteo is doing that. We've watched through the last 3 or 4 tournaments, and Watch what she's done to build it. She has the ingredients to be successful. She's got the post players inside. Northern Colorado had 48 points in the paint against Northern Arizona. That is phenomenal. That means they're pounding it into the post and going for high percentage shots. They also had 44 bench points. I mean, they just have so much depth. They remind me a lot of Idaho. They have the perimeter play. They defend on the perimeter. They're quick. They're athletic. They can shoot it. And then they have this strong post play inside both Idaho, Northern Colorado, and not just one post that they go to. They've got 2 or 3 each that they use. And so every night you're not just depending on 1 or 2 players to do it for you. You've got so much depth.
Right. She had 3 players in this game against Northern Arizona in double figures that are off the bench. So she certainly has really been able to lean on Anaya Hall, Heather Bayman. You know, I think Tatum West is a pretty phenomenal player, Nina George. But strategy wise, Coach Matteo, you get to Boise as a coach. What do you have to change? Do you change anything, or do you make the same exact game plan?
I think you prepare for who it is you're going to play. And they played each team twice, and they know what worked against that team, what didn't work. They've seen what other teams have done to the team that they're going to play. So they'll put some wrinkles in. They'll change some things up. You know, they'll add a little offensive quirky thing here and there. Just maybe it's a special out of bounds, maybe it's sideline, whatever. But defensively, I think as coaches, you prepare for that team to take away the strength. And it's always different. You look at all these teams in the conference, they're all different. And they're different the way they play. So each coach is going to prepare for that team, not necessarily for the tournament, because you got to win the first game or you're done. So they're not looking past the first game. Right. It doesn't matter if you're 1-2 or 8-9. You're looking at that game and the preparation next week for that game.
So there's a bit of a jump between 4 to, and then we have 5, 6, 7 with all right now with 6 wins. So you have Eastern Washington that is 6-9, Sac State 6-9, and NAU is 6-9. Well, it is going to be a dogfight because you want to get one of those top 6 seeds.
Absolutely.
So you can have that bye. I don't think we've seen that big of a jump between our 5th to 7th place teams.
Right.
And then you do have that bottom tier in Montana, Weber State, and Portland State. Now, they put together games. They have, Montana has 4 wins, Weber State has 3, Portland State has 2. So they're very capable.
Well,
right?
And they're so close. All 3 of them have been close in different games that could have gone either way, right?
Right.
Either way. Unfortunately, they lose and the other team wins, which they could have won if they just could have put that in game together. It doesn't matter if it's Montana, doesn't matter if it's Weber State or Portland State. They've all been competitive.
Well, I take a look at that first opening day of tournament play when we see our 9-10 and our 7-8. So they get that experience in the arena. All right. They get in there, they feel comfortable. They're feeling good once they get a win. All right. They hit the number 1 or number 2 seed the next day. But how much of that is, it's kind of an interesting tournament setup, right? Because you have momentum and you have your 1 and 2 that really only get on that floor for 30 minutes before the game. Right. They're not getting a practice in the arena. They're getting their shoot around time in the morning, and then they're getting on 30 minutes or 60 minutes before the game. So essentially they're getting about an hour to an hour and a half on the court. How much of that plays into it, CT?
I think you see in that number 1 and number 2 seed some nerves to start the game. There's definitely some nerves, and you see it. And the coaches, I remember watching Montana State last year, and they struggled in their first game of the tournament. It wasn't a blowout, but coaches have to weather that first quarter, stay positive with your team, bring them along. Shots will fall. Usually it's shots that don't fall right away, and be able to concentrate on the defensive end, because if you're not playing well offensively and you're counting on your offense, you're in trouble. So focusing on the defensive end and rebounding and just keep encouraging, don't worry, it's a long game. You do have to weather the storm.
We've certainly seen some amazing performances, and we've called out a realm of players on my show this year, and it's been fun to be able to watch who steps up at various times. And I want to give some shout outs to some of these top players. When we start to name this all conference team and head into this next week, we'll have a Big Sky Conference MVP. I feel like there's always a bit of a target on the MVP and the first team's back.
Yeah.
When they come into the tournament.
Oh, yeah.
And so obviously front running for MVP, you have to take a look at like a player like Taylor Chiric.
Yes.
I do feel pretty passionate, CT, that MVP should come off of your regular season championship team. How do you feel about that? Do you feel that way, or do you feel like this should be more like stat driven?
Well, it's hard, because is it a team award? Because you can have a team that can win the championship, but they don't have a standout player. It's hard to say. I go back and forth. I'm just glad I don't have to pick it. But there's so many teams that, yes, Taylor Chiric makes that team go. Without her, they're not what they are. And then you go to Idaho. Hope Hossman has had an incredible year, but so has Deborah DeSantos. So has Kira Gardner. Maybe Kira Gardner is the newcomer of the year. I don't know. But how do you pick off a first team all conference off Idaho and then Idaho State? I love Casey Spink. I'm gonna do my darndest. I think she's been so consistent. She is the heart and soul of that team. But without Tasia Jordan, do they win the games that they win? Who do you pick? And then NAU has the leading score in the Big Sky Conference, averaging 20 points in conference, 21.5 overall. Naomi White is the leading scorer in the conference. She's good for 20 a night. That's amazing. Well, I
know. And you look at and Kylie Brown too. I mean, for Portland State, she's number 3 in scoring. And so, yeah, their teams are not indicative of being one of the top teams, but they've certainly put up numbers individually. I believe that they deserve a spot on one of the all-conference teams.
Right.
I don't necessarily feel like first team, but I don't think you have to give it to Naomi White. You almost got to put her on the first team. So yeah, I'm just going back and forth.
Conference, and she's playing against all these teams that are 1, 2, 3, 4, and she's still scoring 20 points against them.
Right. And then you have players like a Courtney Grossman. I mean, she's averaging about 13 rebounds a game, and maybe offensively she's not leading, she's not in the very top, but she's just incredible on the boards.
Right.
Let's talk about another player, Emma Nopu. Okay. Emma Nopu, let me just tell you, I was so impressed with their overtime win at Montana with her play. And I felt like she has grown up, CT, this year, and she has showed poise. And I mean, they put up 86 points. But she, number 7 in scoring at over 14 points a game. And then she's right there. She's number 2 in rebounds for the league at almost 10. And then she shoots an incredible field goal percentage. She shoots 53% from the floor.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like their individual performances, no matter what their team has done, like Emma Nopu has been the heart and soul of Weber State. And she's carried it and played hard and no matter what. And again, another player that's just been amazing. So
CT, who would you pick? Who would be your nominees for defensive player of the year? There's a few. Think about it. Just you don't have to give me who you think it is, but I think like for me, Taylor Chiric or Casey Spink are my top 2 for defensive players of the year.
Absolutely. And I would probably, depending on if Taylor Chiric is MVP, then I think Casey Spink is defensive player of the year. She and rebounder. And I mean, Taylor Chiric has this whole team around her, athletic team that could be on the best track team in the conference. And
we got hurdlers, we got high jumpers. We just got
exactly.
She's raking them in at the track meets is what she's doing.
And Casey Spink, a senior, been there all 4 years. I just hope that she's recognized for everything that she's done for that program. I'll just say, and I don't know how you pick that, because Taylor Chiric gets a lot of her steals based on her team's defense.
Right.
The trap.
Right.
They trap, she steals, she scores. Casey Spink her steals are individual steals. Her rebounding is just pure blue collar, hard work, just hard nosed play. So anyway.
Well, I'll say this, as a former player, I think all those accolades really mean a lot, right? Because you're a player and you're just working so hard and you like to, maybe feel that recognition, and we're all so team oriented, but I think those awards are great. But as a player, you want to win the championship and get on that all tournament team. Right. So that's the one that you're trying to
exactly. I think those players that we talk about right now, they could care less. They just want to win the championship and advance to the NCAA tournament, and, forget all the other, and then, like you say, be on the all tournament team. That's because that's the third season, right? And that's the one that counts the most and sends you to the big dance.
So let's talk just for a minute. Idaho does not have an easy 3 games. So they have to go to NAU, and then they have Northern Colorado at home, and they have Eastern Washington at home. Mm-hmm. There's just no gimme games.
No.
And so I take a look at Montana State. Now they have to go on the road. They go to Portland State and Sac State, and then they get NAU at home. Anytime you go on the road, it's tough.
Right.
So I feel as if there are going to be a lot of things that are answered in the next week of play. And then we get to join each other, which is so exciting. I'm going to be calling the tournament as a color analyst on the TV calls, and you're going to be the color analyst for the Big Sky courtside show.
Right.
That is just so much fun.
I know.
Tell us about the courtside show. Like what makes that such a fun
so it's
show?
So fun. And I've done the play-by-play color, which is what you're going to do for the conference, which helps me. So we do 30 minutes before the first game, and we talk about the two games that are going to happen. Mm-hmm. And then we go play the game. So this is the part I like, because this is what I get to do. Watch the first half, and then at halftime, talk about what happened in that first half, and maybe what changes might be made, or what outstanding performances, some surprises, whatever. And then we go the second half, and I watch that, and then we come back and talk about it. So for me, it's like a coach scouting the game. So it's easy to do, not always easy to talk about. And sometimes I wished I had all the verbiage that all you little smart
I don't know about that.
Journalism majors do, but you can only be
political science. Never did journalism, but hey, I hear you. I just hope that we can hear you, because I want to hear what your insight is. And after the game, you get those coach interviews, and I just want to hear what you ask them. And I know they love getting interviewed by you, because even if you just throw a real question at them, because you've sat in their spot.
You want to always recognize the other team that didn't win, but there's so much insight to what they will tell you if you ask the right questions. And it just really, the only hard thing is it goes so fast. Our segments on the court side are so fast, and Megan does a great job putting the program together, but we're always putting in things and interviewing people, and so there's so much information that comes from the courtside show, and it just is a blast. And I just feel very fortunate to get to be a part of it.
CT, it is always an honor to have you, and I love breaking down the season with you. It's been so much fun. Next week, we're going to do it while we're in Boise. You and I will be able to have a chat, and I'm going to figure out how to record it so we can get it on the show next week or the week after. And so this is pretty exciting. We got one more week before we take off. So that is very exciting, and I can't wait to get to Boise.
Me too. I'm with you, Krista.
Thanks, CT.
Thank you.
Thanks as well to Robin Selvig, former head coach for the Lady Griz, for the insight and for taking the time with me today. And thanks to all of you for listening. This week's episode of the Krista Redpath Show was brought to you by Vertical Raise and the Good Food Store. Coming up next week, We will be 1 week away from Big Sky in Boise, and I will be joined by Tracy Warren, who will be on every call with me as play-by-play, and also will visit with some of the head coaches around the league.